Hey everyone. Okay, so I figured out that 12 minutes is my cutoff time for this video because that's how much space my camera has, so I'm going to try to make this very quick. This is my best of 2015 video, which I've recorded several times, and it hasn't worked. Originally it was like 30 minutes long and it wouldn't even upload, so I'm going to record it now and hopefully get it within the 12-minute window. The first ones that I'm going to talk about are ones that I have already done book reviews on, or videos on, so that you guys can really just go watch those if you want to know intricate thoughts rather than me really trying to tell you here because I don't have time, unfortunately. So yes. Okay, so first is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I did like a 20 or 30 minute review on this because it's so amazing. This isn't, I can't say it's my favorite Neil Gaiman because I will love Stardust until the day I die. But it's definitely my second, I would say. It's just incredibly weird and wonderful, and just, yeah, go watch my video about it because I just go on and it's fantastic and I'm so excited for the TV series. I think I gave it like 4.5 or 4.75 out of 5. Wonderful. Next is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Unbelievably amazing. Although now that I've read Tenet of Wildfell Hall, second favorite Bronte novel instead of first favorite, but you will hear more about Tenet of Wildfell Hall in my 2016 list. So anyway, this is my 2015 list, and as you can tell from the tabs, I completely adored this book. I knew I would because I've seen so many adaptations of this since I was like 9 years old that I knew that I've always loved the story, but it took me years to actually get around to reading the book. But yes, go watch my review of this because I go into much more detail. And I don't remember the star rating I gave this, but I probably talk about it in my review. Next up, we have Far From the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. This was my first Hardy, and this is one of my favorite classics of all time now. It's just phenomenal and wonderful, and again, go watch my review of this because I go into much more detail. And unfortunately, you guys, I don't know how to link reviews. But I mean, if you guys are subscribed to my channel, you guys know how to find stuff on my channel. And it shouldn't even be, these should all be within like 20 videos or something because I don't put up too many, so yeah. But this was wonderful and heart-wrenching and beautiful and funny and just so many things. And Thomas Hardy's writing is gorgeous. So, yes. And then, okay, there's one that I did a review on, but I'm going to talk about that last because it was actually my favorite of the whole year. So, yeah. Next we have the Miss Marple. Actually, this is sort of representative of all the Agatha Christie that I read this year. So obviously I don't have reviews on all of these, but I read I finally finished her short story collection, which I've been reading for quite a while. And I read Mysterious Ferret Styles and Murder on the Links and Poirot Investigates, which are the first 3 in the Poirot series. And then at the end of the year, I read And Then There Were None, so I could watch the miniseries. My favorite of all of those was probably And Then There Were None, which is surprising because I was too scared to actually read it when I was in 7th grade. So I find it ironic that that's my favorite that I've read so far. But my favorite of the Poirots was Murder on the Links. And then this was also really good, but it's kind of half and half. I marked all of my favorite stories in here, but there were also some stories that I didn't like as much. But Agatha Christie is now in my top 5 favorite authors of all time. She is a genius. Her writing is gorgeous. Her plots and her twists are wonderful. And you especially see that in And Then There Were None. So I highly recommend that. Although I do think I'll eventually get to a Poirot book that I like better than And Then There Were None, but we'll have to see. And then I know that I read this whole Marple collection, but I'm actually waiting to start Miss Marple's books, like her novels, until after I've already read all of Poirot, just because I don't want to be reading both of them at the same time. But yes, Agatha Christie is an amazing mystery writer. So far, she's my favorite mystery writer, and it was amazing. Next up is probably a book I liked even more than the Agatha Christie's, but I can't say that this author is in my favorites yet because I haven't actually read more than one of his books. But this is Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie, by Alan Bradley, and no, I'll say this is tied with Agatha Christie. And this was amazing. I read this on, Leslie's recommendation from WordsofaReader, and I will actually link her channel down below, or like tell you what it is in the description, because I think she does do a review on this, and she does, I don't know, she words it far more eloquently than I could. So yeah, I will link her channel down below. But this is the first in a series. It's set in the 1950s in England, and it's about this precocious 11-year-old who wants to be a chemist, and she's actually already a very good chemist, and she's incredibly smart, and she's actually smarter than other members of her family, and she's also kind of an outcast because of that, I guess. Like, other members of her family don't really care for her that much, or at least they don't show it very often. And this is about her finding a dead man in their back garden, and how he is related to their family. And it's wonderful. The writing is great. The characters are great. There are amazing references to things that were current in the 1950s. Great literary references. One of her sisters really likes reading Dickens, so she's always seen, there's like a lot of Dickens stuff in here. And then there are a lot of Sherlock Holmes references, because Flavia is basically like Sherlock Holmes as an 11-year-old. So yes, this is brilliant, and I highly recommend. And I will definitely be continuing on with that series. And then we have Christmas Carol by Dickens. I just adored this. I've always loved this story, but I've never actually read the book. I'm not going to say what it's about, because, I mean, it should be very well known by now what Christmas Carol is about, and I'm mad that it took me this long to get to this. I read it, and I listened to the Jim Dale narration, and the story itself is just beautiful and creepy, and Dickens is, I can firmly say that he's one of my favorite writers now, because I've read this and Nicholas Nickleby, and I've also read one or two of his shorter things. So yeah, I can say that he's one of my favorites now. And this was just incredibly moving, and some of the parts that were in here that aren't in the TV adaptations were so interesting, and Jim Dale's narration was spot on, and it kept reminding me of his narrations of Harry Potter. And yes, I love this. And fun little tidbit, the Ghost of Christmas Present is my favorite ghost in the book and in every adaptation that I've seen. So yes, this is amazing. Okay, and then 3 things that I want to talk about very quickly that I don't have to show you. One is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I'm just going to say, if you haven't heard of this, if you've been living under a rock and you haven't seen it around BookTube, go pick it up and read it, because I don't want to tell you, all I want to tell you is that it's about World War II, but it's a very different type of World War II story. I do agree with most readers who say that. And Anthony Doerr's writing is gorgeous. He 100% deserved the Pulitzer that he won for it. And it is an incredibly moving story that I just completely adore, and I think it's in my top 10 of all time, rather than just top 10 of 2015. So please go out and read it, because I don't want to tell you guys what it's about, because I want you to go in blindly. So yes, go read it. Next is my favorite graphic novel that I read this year, which was Once Upon a Time Out of the Past. I loved, the two stories that I love the most are the ones about Rumple and Belle and Jefferson, because I loved the two illustrators a lot, and I also really, really, really loved the plot, because Jefferson's illustrator was actually my favorite comic illustrator right now, Janet Leigh. And then I have to do honorary mention as well, to Iron Man Extremis, because that was a great story. I did love the, the Once Upon a Time story better, but the illustrations in Iron Man Extremis were done by Adi Granov, and they are like paintings, and they are beautiful. Definitely, he's probably my second favorite illustrator right now, I would say. So yes, honorary mention to that. And then Discworld. That's the other thing. I lent all my Discworld books to Ben. I read 5 Discworld books, the first 5 Discworld books that are in the series this year. My favorite was Mort. My least favorite was Sorcery. If you haven't read Discworld, just get into it, because it is... Oh, my scarf is stuck. It is phenomenal. I can't recommend it highly enough. It is an incredibly intelligent, creative, funny, witty, beautiful world that Terry Pratchett created, and it makes me even sadder that such a creative writer is